Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
.57 is the time. Michael's in Chelmsford. Michael, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
I sort of agree with you. I mean, no doubt Trump's just not quite all the ticket using, Twitter, which is a sort of a toy thing really for serious issues. But it sort of seems anyone that wants to raise any concern about what's going on is you're branding them a bigot, a racist, this, that and the other.
Who is me?
Yeah, that's how it comes across.
Well, when I described the people responsible for recent terror attacks, I think the words I used were scumbag, disgusting, beneath contempt.
Anyone that wants to discuss what is going on. Let me ask you a question, please, right?
Of course.
I'm half Polish, half Assyrian. I was born in Ghana in Africa, lived in England till I was 4 years old, and my father's job took us to Kuwait at the age of 4. I can clearly remember from that age, no knowledge of religion, politics or anything. I did not like seeing women with their face covered up. It scared me.
Same here. I don't know if it scares me. I hate it. What's the question?
So, the question is, where are my rights? I've lived and worked out there, and I've followed their rules while I've been out there.
But by they, you mean you're putting all Muslim people together.
Very strict Muslim country.
Stinks. Absolutely despicable. Medieval in the worst possible sense of the word. What's the question, Michael?
Am I a bigot? Where am I meant
For
to
what,
stand?
though?
I don't feel comfortable with that.
Nor do I.
And I would rather, in this country, they weren't worn.
I'd be uncomfortable making it a law, but I'd love people to arrive at that conclusion for themselves independently, because I don't think laws should tell us what we can and can't wear. But I'm closer to thinking that on that particular case, a law perhaps could work than I am on any other garment. So I don't understand why you're asking, are you a bigot for agreeing with me on all of these issues?
I'm concerned, as I say. I think the underlying... Shall we say, we have had a lot more terrorism going on in the last few years. It has
not compared to the 70s or the 80s. So I don't. Well, no, that's just called counting, mate. What's the question? You've asked, am I a bigot? And I don't understand what you've said that you think might leave you open to an accusation of bigotry. I think you've agreed.
Because I want to discuss the fact. My personal view, after living out in Saudi and the Middle East, is that there is an overriding thing that they do want to take over. It was openly said that we want the whole world to be Muslim. Their attitude was.
And the fact that we arm this regime and make excuses for them, both in Parliament and beyond, is a source of immense national shame. But I don't understand what it is that you think you're not allowed to say. The Saudi royal family would have been toast years ago if it wasn't for the support of the British government. So, because you did use me as an example, you seem to think I was going to accuse you of bigotry for saying lots of things that I've said a million times myself.
It does seem that anyone that...
But you can't keep saying that when all of the examples you've given, Michael, I've completely agreed with. The face veil is, to my mind, appallingly oppressive and wrong. The notion of Saudi supremacy in the Middle East seems to me to be the source of an awful lot of what's going wrong in the world. Any form of supremacism... Yeah, go on, mate. What do you think you're not allowed to say?
Well, my standpoint is I am concerned about the Muslim population in this country, that there are more, shall we say, supporting things than would be on face value. And you actually had a guy on yesterday, which I think really highlighted it, who's been asked, should he assimilate into the UK? And his whole attitude is, why should I assimilate?
I don't know what you're talking about now, Michael.
No, there was. It wasn't your programme, but there was.
Right. So you heard a bloke on a phone-in show, sounding like, to my mind, a bit of a Burke, and that makes you think that we should be more terrorised by Muslims who probably support terrorists but don't publicly declare it.
that's the basic thing.
Okay, well, you've said that now.
Presenters like yourself are trying to put it that the problem is very, very, very small.
No. Presenters like myself are trying to say that the problem, that the scale of the problem is determined and defined by things that have happened.
Well, your rhetoric says that, basically.
Michael, mate, it doesn't.
Anyone that
how can anybody be in denial about a terror attack? What you're claiming is that we should be more terrorised by people who haven't done anything wrong yet, because you think there's a strong likelihood they might.
I think we should be more concerned than what we are.
Well, how can we be more concerned? It's by far the biggest national security issue facing the security services at the moment.
But you would portray it. This is what it comes across on your programme.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You hear what you want to hear. I hold up a mirror and you hate what you see. So what you've rung in to tell me is that you heard some bloke on somebody else's programme on this radio station yesterday, and that proves something about me that you want to believe.
No, what I'm trying to say, which if you would actually, rather than just trying to be clever about everything...
Mate, we're 2.5 minutes late for the news. I can't really give you much more freedom and space.
Because it seems that there is no way. You always feel that you have to be right and have the last word.
No, I've agreed with you. I've agreed with every word you've said.
Well,
apart from the bit about being frightened of people who haven't actually done anything wrong yet. I don't agree with you on that, because that way it's the thought police, isn't it?
Well, that's what we've actually got. It is the thought police. People are too afraid.
And you want more of that. You want more policing of what you think people think rather than what they've actually done or said.
I think we could basically, well, maybe hopefully, behind closed doors, there is more of it going on to just try and weed out the bad apples. But what I'd like to see is a little bit more, shall we say, proactive from that group to weed their own bad apples out, and that's what we don't see. And I think that's what upsets.
But what if they don't think they're in the same group? Any more than I bear responsibility for the actions of the IRA, or you bear responsibilities for white paedophiles. Well, why would you say that you were in the same group as them?
I'll give you an example, right? We had
I'm very late for the news, and with the greatest of love and respect, be clear that this is going to be helpful.
Right. Football hooliganism, police tried to deal with it, nothing seemed to happen. When the clubs themselves started to deal with it, we got a good result. We haven't got nearly the football hooliganism that we used to have in the 80s, and it wasn't until the clubs themselves dealt with it. And that's what I'm saying. It would be nice for the general public out there to see the Muslim community being more proactive about weeding out their bad apples. We don't see that, and that's where the concern lies.
Okay. And you think by saying that out loud you become a bigot in the eyes of some people?
Well, it feels, that's how I feel. That,
okay,
you know,
well, I can't help how you feel. I can't help how you feel. You know how this programme works. We deal in facts and evidence. All of the facts and all of the evidence is that what you've just said does not leave you exposed to an accusation of bigotry. Your examples about the Saudi Arabian royal family, your examples about face veils, all of these things I can completely agree with. I would describe them as medievalist, backwards and wrong. But you're determined to hear some sort of, I don't know quite what the phrase would be. You're determined to hear support for the idea that we should be more terrorised, Michael. That's what you really want. You want us to be more terrorised. And the best way of doing that is by taking loads and loads of innocent Muslims and telling them that they're somehow responsible for terrorists. They're somehow responsible for atrocities and carnage. They're no more responsible for it than you are. But you're not comfortable with that side of the argument because you want people to be more terrorised. And so do the terrorists, mate. So, in terms of that simple question, do you want people to be more or less terrorised? Your answer is...
less terrorised.
Okay, well, that's your choice. You can choose right now to be less terrorised. And the best way to start would be not to claim that all Muslims are somehow complicit in acts of terror. And then immediately you'd be confining your anger and your fear to people who commit acts of terror and not people who sell you milk in the morning, do your accounts, or drive you home at night after a skinful. Because they're all Muslims and they've got no more to do with terrorism than you have. So you're on the same side as them. Do you see?
No, it's a very difficult subject.
It really isn't. It really isn't. You're making it difficult. And, of course, people like Donald Trump and Islamic State love the difficulty that you're having because it feeds the hatred that they're seeking to spread. You choose whether or not you're going to be a tool of that hatred, my friend. You choose. Make the right choice. It's 11:06. My apologies to you and to Simon Conway for going so late to the news, but I felt Michael was very much under the impression that he was somehow not allowed to say what he wanted to say, and it seemed a very good way of proving to him that indeed he is, albeit that it means I'll get my knuckles rapped later for hitting the news so late. And also him thinking he's not allowed to say stuff. And he's been told that by so many evil people, so many self-serving demagogues and hate preachers. You're not allowed to say... You're allowed to say them. You're allowed to say anything. But then other people are allowed to ask questions. Other people are allowed to scrutinise what you've said. And, you know, if you do, as a few people picked up on, and I didn't, if you do issue a phrase like "they want to take over the world," it does perhaps leave you open to an accusation of bigotry. But only if, after saying "they want to take over the world," you stick your fingers in your ears and close your eyes. If after saying that you engage in a conversation, a civilised conversation, hopefully everybody can benefit from it. And I mean, to come on, to think how you've been groomed, mate, to come onto my radio show and think that you're going to get into some sort of trouble for criticising face veils or Saudi Arabia means that you're not listening to reality. You're listening to propaganda. And it's working, because you kind of should all want less terrorism and fewer people being terrorised. But what Donald Trump did last night was seek to terrorise people like Michael, people like me, people like you. It won't work. Not in the long term, but it is working in the short term. Two buttocks of the same backside. Islamists, Islamofascists, jihadists, call them what you want, white supremacists, far-right extremists, racists, call them what you want. They want the same thing. They want us all to turn on each other. And those little entry-level tactics, like saying, well, why can't all Muslims do more to root out bad apples? Why the hell should they? Why the hell should they? A great tweet coming in saying, I just want halal Haribo. How the hell can I be responsible for acts of international terror? That's the point, though, isn't it? You start saying to someone completely innocent, you have to do stuff. That's a baby step towards fascism. And I hope Michael realised that.